Few anticipated the intensity, the scope, the massive scale of the anti-corruption campaign. And after he placed his colleague Wang Qishan to be head of the Central Discipline Inspection Commission, so many senior officials and also people in the rank and file have been disciplined. But at the same time, of course, there are also complaints about some of the tactics that are adopted in the anti-corruption campaign. So in the report, General Secretary and President Xi called for the creation of the State Supervision Commission, Supervisory Commission. And of course, in connection with it, in the new law that's going to be enacted, they also are going to modify some of the terms in terms of how people can be detained and so on for investigation. So it's actually both keeping up the resolute approach to corruption, but at the same time, it's going to be further institutionalized for the next 5 years at least, and probably longer.
China's been working with other countries, like the United States, to bring fugitives back to face justice. How's that working, and is it working well?
Well, partly because since already beginning in the 1980s, there were gradually people who embezzled or who got a lot of money by illegal means began to run away. And over time, especially in the 2000s, there were more people who became fabulously wealthy and then disappeared. So under the campaign, the Chinese leadership, through the Interpol, has issued a list of people who they want to bring back, more than 100. So far, I think around half of those people have been brought back to justice. So it's been a more successful campaign than before, partly because China has greater influence globally. They work through the Interpol. At the same time, more countries have been willing to cooperate. But of course, it's also been challenging with some of the leading countries, such as the United States, because the U.S. does not have an extradition treaty with China for all sorts of reasons. So China has been working very hard behind the scenes and in formal conferences, hoping to have more cooperation from countries such as the United States to bring the fugitives back to China.
China's anti-corruption campaign has been so public and so sweeping and global. Could other countries use it as a model, do you think?
While the state wants to keep it at corrupt officials and others, they also want it to be a more legalized process. And those are experiences that actually China has learned from other countries. And of course, the Chinese experience itself can also be useful for other countries, especially because in the Chinese case, one of the big challenges is it's a one-party state, and people tend to question whether such a party, such a state could tame corruption. As you can see, with determined leadership, realizing that it faces peril in having too much corruption, in fact, those kind of leadership can be very decisive in dealing with corruption. The issue has been, especially in the West, but also sometimes in China, you feel people thinking and speaking out, saying that the campaign is getting at certain people rather than others. So there is a selective aspect to it. But of course, in every country, enforcement is never truly applied indiscriminately. Instead, it always is, of course, enforcement power is limited. There is, so therefore, the regulators, the enforcers have to pick and choose.